Hello everyone, my name is Monica Sayrol and welcome to Subnautica 2. Subnautica 2 has a major flaw that not many are actually talking about, that being replayability. If you haven't noticed by now, all the objects in Subnautica 2 are hand-placed, including the fragments. All the resources are hand-placed as well. In Subnautica 1, if you didn't know, the fragments and resources were actually randomly generated, although there were some that were hand-placed. This causes a major problem. Right here is the wall rack, which I want to take a bet you have never fully scanned. You need 3 of these fragments to unlock them. And along with the wall rack, I believe it also unlocks the sign. Now the problem with this is that there's only 3 or 4 of these fragments throughout the entire game. And this is not the only bit of tech that suffers from this. This is the oxygen generator. And in order to unlock it, you need to scan the only 2 fragments of it in the entire game. The only 2 fragments are right here in the Great Clamp. They are nowhere else in the game. Or how about the rectangular ceiling light? This is one of 2 fragments in the entire game. This one is the one that you might come across if you have your eyes peeled, or by some miracle you come across this fragment over here of the ceiling light, which is flipped over so you'd have no idea that this is actually the rectangular ceiling light fragment. And right here is the only fragment in the entire game for the bioscanner, which is a very critical piece of technology that you need to even advance in the game. Are you beginning to see the problem here? I sure hope so. What made Subnautica 1's early game really special, you encountered fragments depending on the biome you're in, which, you know, that's a video game, of course it's gonna be like that. But because all the fragments and every object is hand-placed, we now have to rely on the world builders to hand-place every fragment for you. And in a lot of cases, you're not going to be unlocking all that technology. What I am proposing is that more fragments be laid around just randomly. Have some randomly generated fragments around. Those would help a lot. Replayability for a game like Subnautica is very important, and I'm really afraid that's not something that's being taken seriously when it comes to the game's development. Not to mention how very linear the game kind of feels now, like you have to go to this place, you have to go to the Welcome Center, you have to go to the other bases. It doesn't really feel like at any point you're kind of let off the hook and you can go in whatever direction you want. Now, hopefully this will change as the game gets larger, but another issue is that a lot of places of interest don't feel optional. It's like you have to go to every single place. Like this wreck, for example. As a matter of fact, all the wrecks in the Axum Ruins you have to visit if you want to progress. Now, wrecks in Subnautica 1 were never required. Not once. There was a bunch of them littered around the ocean, but it felt nice to explore because curiosity got the better of you, not Noah telling you that you have to explore it. I'm not saying every wreck needs to be optional. Some are obviously going to be more important than others. The replayability issues don't really stop there. As a matter of fact, I feel like bases are another huge problem for replayability. Not the bases themselves, but the inability to place bases wherever you want. Look at this whole area here, right? Handcrafted and it looks beautiful. They want you to make a base around here, but they stuck an abandoned base right where you'd want to build a base. Like, I'm looking at this area right here, and I think it looks great. I'm not able to build a base here without it having sticking off into the void. I could just build a base right there, but now I have a giant heap of metal next to me that looks very ugly because it's abandoned and rusty. I don't know, to me it feels like you're making a bed right next to a dying corpse. This place right here does feel like it's intentionally flat so that you can build a base there, and that's okay. Same with that plateau right there. But then it gets a little interesting as to why there's a bunch of assets on here that are not able to place a base on. I mean, can you? No. Oh, you can. You kinda can. Like that? I guess you can do that. I guess what I'm trying to say is that in Subnautica 1, it felt a lot more free wherever you could build a base. But in Subnautica 2, it feels a lot more restrictive. You will either build a base here, on that plateau, or over here on the ridge. There is just really no in between. There's not a lot of free places to build a base. Regardless of where you choose, you will build a base near the tower. Now, what I find very interesting is that you can't actually build a base on the Axum Ruins. You know, the flattest area in the whole biome? Why can't I? Just, why can't I? Here's another example of the world being a little restrictive on your base building. You have this whole valley here, right? And instead of being able to place a base where it might be sound, you have a BFJ just sitting right here. Now, I'm not saying to remove the BFJ. Not at all. I mean, to be fair, you could build a base there, but then it's so far away from everything. Although that point doesn't really count because obviously the world will be filled and then there will be things over there and so forth. I guess what I'm trying to say is that every time you want to build a base somewhere, it feels like something's always obstructing it. Like, no, this is my territory. So I have a few ideas to help with this, but you're gonna have to really hear me out on this. I don't know how keen y'all are on reusing ideas, but floating islands, just saying. That solves a lot of problems already. More places to explore, fills up an empty area, and it's a flat surface to build a base on. Hell, even just like a skinny sand pillar that sprouts into like a sand platform. I mean, it's an alien planet. You could do so many different things. Kind of just like these, but smaller. Another feature that really helps with replayability that is going to be very hard to fix now is the life pod used to have randomly starting areas. Every time you'd make a save in Subnautica, your experience was pretty fresh, with 3 to 5 different starting areas in the safe shallows. As a consequence to making the game a lot more story heavy, you kind of have to put the life pod in a very specific place every time. But this very much hurts replayability, especially in the early game. Because every time you start, you'll just be like, okay, I need to go here to get this fragment, and then here to get that fragment. In Subnautica 1, there is depth to it. You always knew you had to go to a specific biome to get a fragment, but then you had to explore that biome again to find that fragment, and you would sometimes find new areas of the biome that you've never seen before, having to search for that fragment. Again, I hope what I'm saying really makes sense. Speaking of biomes, I have a big problem with them. They all look amazing, don't get me wrong. Like, check out this biome, for example. It's very pretty. It's an anemone biome. I'd love to build a base here. Let's explore more of it. And there's the edge of it. Yeah, I understand that the coral gardens are supposed to be like kind of a mishmash, a bunch of different sub-biomes to make a region, but it really doesn't allow for biomes like this to reach their full potential, I don't feel. I'd love for this to be extended out this way and just have more of the anemone biome. I want to be able to build a base here, but the problem is that there's not anything over there, so I'd be wasting my time if I built a base here and having to go all the way from here, all the way to the Axum ruin, when I could just build a base in the center of the coral gardens. That's a future problem, but this biome is just microscopic. Which I hope means only one thing. We'll be able to see this biome in other parts of the world eventually. Something that Subnautica 1 did is that it didn't just have one safe shallows biome or one grassy plateaus. It had multiple of them, so that no matter what direction you want to go swim in, you'd be able to experience that biome, and sometimes a different variation of that biome. The southern kelp forest was actually greatly different from the kelp forest near the mountain biome. It had a lot of different terrain and formations and stuff. So using all these assets just for this one area doesn't sit well with me. These props and assets should be able to be used in other parts of the world, and just more biomes, more anemone biomes. If the developers are hoping that this world ends up bigger than Subnautica 1's, and for a sequel, I really sure hope it does end up being bigger, this is me telling the developers that they really shouldn't be afraid of reusing assets like this. I don't think any player would mind having different variations of the BFJ in other biomes. Hell, just have another coral gardens biome like 2 kilometers out there. No one's gonna find it until later in the game anyway. Considering that the game wants us to go even deeper, have some other surface biomes as well. So this kind of went off topic from the replayability argument I've been making, and I do apologize for that. I just wanted to give my own critiques on the world itself. So why am I making this into a YouTube video if I'm a playtester and I can just tell all this to the developers themselves? Well, for one, I've already told them. 2, I feel like a video might help express my opinions on it a little bit more thoroughly. And 3, I really wanted this to create a dialogue between you, the player, and me, someone who's been playing the game for much longer. I really want to know if you, the player, have been experiencing what I've been experiencing with this game, and noticing that it just doesn't have replayability whatsoever. I'd like to see your input and see what you would like to suggest to fix this problem. Subnautica 2 is not a game I want to play just once. It's a game I'd love to experience other runs with. And sure, you could say that building bases in different places helps with replayability, but if you have to rely on player choice every time you want replayability to be a factor in the game, it's not going to be fun. Subnautica 1 excelled with replayability because of the resources and fragments being in different places. I'm perfectly fine with resources being hand-placed. That's fine. The resources in this game are pattern-based instead of just biome-based, but the fragments always being the same place every time and being so restrictive on how many you have to find to get everything. Like the oxygen generator needing 2 fragments and then the only 2 fragments in the game being in one place. That's a big no-no. I don't like that at all. I mean, even the modification station, it only took 1 fragment to get that. That doesn't make sense. I feel like you should have had to find 3 fragments of that around the Axum ruins. And I feel like the wrecks placed all around the map could have more fragments in them. They're just so empty. And yes, I know that could change in the future. Hint, hint. There needs to be more fragments inside of the wrecks. Maybe not this one because it's just a starter wreck, but the big wrecks should have an assortment of all different kinds of technology. So, long story short, the game needs better replayability, and if this isn't factored into the development sooner rather than later, it's going to really harm the game at 1.0. So developers, please consider replayability as a stronger element. Otherwise, this game will suffer later on. And for the new region that has been announced to be in development, if it's linear, okay, go for it. But after that region is done, please make it so that we are allowed to choose which direction we want to go in, and then have it so that we can tackle different tasks in those regions. Because if the entire game is just going to be go from point A to point B to point C to point D without having any branching paths, again, that will harm replayability, and no one is going to like that. Don't get me wrong, I love the story that this game is telling. I think it's great. But please ensure that every run of this game won't be exactly the same. People aren't gonna like that. Thank you so much to the developers and you viewers for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time. Please write your thoughts in the comments below. They will help the game evolve, I promise. Please, as always, take care of yourselves, and see you around, Pioneer.